Okay, perfect. So for today's presentation, what we're going to be showing you is how to take a brand new Apptivo account and get a basic CRM system configured in just about 15 minutes. So what we're going to do is we're going to move very quickly. If you got to pause this video later on, not a problem. It will be recorded and available on YouTube. So what we're going to be covering is 4 major steps. First, we just want to talk about, what are these CRM apps in Apptivo? Apptivo is a big platform. We're just talking about CRM today. And then we're going to come into, okay, if we're going to configure this CRM, I want to quickly explain what key configuration options are available for you. A big part of getting set up is configuring the fields in the system. Then I'll talk about what are the actual key steps that we have to go through to get started. There's really a couple common practices I'm going to show you. We apply them to each app and we'll be set up and running nicely. And then we're actually going to go configure a brand new account together. So let's get moving. All right, so first of all, Apptivo, we're this integrated suite. We have tons of different applications, but the core of the whole platform is the CRM. So up here, what you have is 4 applications that make up the CRM: customers, contacts, leads, opportunities. Customers and contacts, these are businesses or buying groups. The contact is an individual person, so you can have many contacts linked to one customer. A lead and an opportunity are potential deals. The lead is the very first stage before you've spoken to them, have a relationship. The opportunity is any sort of active deal sitting in your pipeline. So between those 4, we're going to get a basic CRM setup in place where we have one main contact database, everybody we interact with, and then any potential deals in the pipeline. Everything else, sure, you can use that, but we're not going to be focusing in on that today. So let's talk about within the CRM. When we're going to go in there and we're going to get it set up, what do we have to go and work on to get this thing running? So there's a ton, Apptivo is a very complex, very, very flexible and configurable system. We're going to rely on just 3 of these features: the master layout, the list layout, and the views. These alone are going to make up 95% of what goes into creating a nicely configured CRM system. And really, it's all about this master layout, because a big part of choosing how to manage your contacts is, think of it, you might even be coming from spreadsheets. You have all these columns in your spreadsheet. What information do you want to track? Everybody wants to track phone number and email and the basic stuff, but do you want to track more than that? Do you need to track less than that? Making sure that you're only tracking the information that's valuable to you. That's the first key thing of having a good CRM is don't track extra information. Clean it up and only put effort in when you're going to get value out of it. So that master layout editor, there's actually a cool drag and drop tool inside of the settings. This is where we're going to spend most of the time today. And we're just going to go through, we're going to click on fields, we're going to delete them, we're going to rearrange them, and we're going to make them nicely set up for our company. So now, skipped forward 1 step. Let's talk about what are we going to run through. So when you sign up for a brand new account, in order to get started, you're first going to log in and we're going to optimize our navigation. Get the CRM app set up, get them quickly accessible. The next step is we're going to go into each CRM app and we're going to repeat a couple common steps. So steps 2, 3, and 4, these features exist in each app. So we're going to say when I input a brand new deal, what information do I need to track? When I input a existing customer, what information do I need to track? Is it different? Are some of the fields shared? These are the questions we're going to run through. And then we're going to go through what's called the list layouts and views, which you'll see what they are. The idea is it just controls when you're browsing through an app exactly what information is presented to you. So we're going to go through the CRM apps one by one. We're going to configure each of them with those 3 areas. And then steps 5 and 6 are basically making things available. So add your users, set them up with the proper access. And then the last part is really just, if you have existing data, we got to go import that data and then connect all of our email and other integrations. So really what we're going to do is we're just staying focused on these first 4 steps. 5 and 6 are going to change drastically based on what type of company you are. Lots of materials there. So let's just focus on how do we get our CRM set up nice and clean right from the get-go. Let's get started. All right, we're going to hop on over and I have a brand new account. So all I've done so far is Ken right here. Ken has come, he's signed up for Apptivo for Marsh Insurance Pros, and he selected the CRM package, nothing else. So right out of the box, what we have is on the left, you'll have built-in navigation. We don't have to configure anything. This stuff is going to work as is. All of our activities will pop up here. But then on top, you'll see we have a button for CRM, a button for human resources. The employees is where we add our users. And then here's those 4 CRM apps we spoke about. But we can make this more efficient. So what we're going to do is we're going to click our name in the upper right corner, go to preferences. A couple different options available for you here, but the key one is customize home. So what you have up here are 5 drop-down menus, and we can select an app. So currently I have to click CRM and then click contacts or customers. It's 2 clicks. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use this customize home feature, and I'm simply gonna move my mouse over, and my recommended setup is to perform a flow in the order of your business. So start off at a lead, and then I can do a customer, a contact, and an opportunity. You'll see I do have a 5th slot. I'll just choose to use it on employees. But now that I've done that, you can see my navigation. I can click to contacts with 1 click, much faster. So that's step number 1, very fast and easy. And then I come into one of my applications. So obviously I have no contacts in here. Let's go quickly just key in a sample contact just for the sake of it. So we got John Doe, he is the procurement manager. And then we can have him work for an account if we want. So we can have him go linked up. So let's go include, he works for Maxilon. You know, we can categorize them, we can put their phone numbers in. Let's just put some junk data. John@maxilon.com. So I basically key in as much information as I possibly can. But you'll see I have a lot of fields, and you know, some of this stuff might be relevant, some might not. Phone numbers, emails, as we mentioned, they're very relevant. But one thing to consider, well, phone number and email are some of the most important fields for my business. And if they're important for me, I should move them up top. The other thing is, you know, is it more important for me to see the company name or to see the individual name? Well, maybe I move these up around. So when you're talking about this page of creating a contact, the master layout controls this page, and you get 100% control. So the first thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come in here, and I'm gonna go and say which fields are very important to me. And then I'm gonna go through and remove everything else. So fields that are important to me, we'll just go scan down the page. We're not gonna do this for each app, but you know, the thought process is first name, last name, clearly very important. Job title, that's important to me. Customer, that's important to me. Contact type, we've got some default options in here. I don't see an immediate purpose. Now, your instruction, if I don't see an immediate use for the field, I'm gonna remove it. I can always add it back in later on. So your first move is to remove, then you would think about adding stuff in. So I'm not gonna track contact types. Maybe I'm not gonna track my supplier database, so I'll remove that. Then there is some default fields. You'll notice I've got a categories, and it comes with these 2 values. You know, in here, I might wanna consider using at least some categorization. So in this example, I'm an insurance agency, and maybe I sell to like businesses and individuals. So I would like to track those categories. This is part of the customization we'll get set up. So okay, we'd leave that. General area for description, that's fine. Place for me to track tags, and phone number and email. Those are important to me. I wanna move those up top. And then address, that's also important. I wanna move that up top. And maybe I like phonetic name, but then none of these other things are gonna be valuable to me. Maybe I'm not tracking sales territories yet in my organization. So I'll remove all that stuff. Same thing here, I'm not gonna track social, so I'm gonna remove all this stuff. So we're gonna end up coming from this contact page, and we're just gonna create a much simpler page to enter a contact. Now let's go do that. We head into our settings area. So in each app, just to the left of the search field, you click on the 3 dots, and then we click on settings. So there's a bunch of options in here. Head straight to customize app and expand this, and then click on master layout. Now this is where we can see pretty much the same form that we were looking at a moment ago. And let's just go start off by deleting. So when you're customizing this, the first thing is delete all the fields that you don't want. So we said contact type is gone, supplier is gone. You see, I just move my mouse over and click on the X above it. Maybe I'm a single user company, so I don't need a signee. I can remove that. But then phone number and email. You know, I'm gonna come back to them, but let's just delete Skype. Address, we'll come back to that. And we said we want phonetic name, but we don't want any of this other stuff. So I can come by and I'll just delete each field on its own. Now, this is unique for each business. There's also a lot of this that's totally personal preference. So although I'm deleting a lot of stuff, don't take this as a rule that you should do something. This is simply the way that I have adopted. So now I've got a little bit of a simpler form, but what I like to do is I like to pair up relevant information. If you want a clean CRM, things like job title and customer should be next to each other. You can either go side by side, like first name, last name, or you can go up and down, but you should pick one method and remain consistent with it. So I prefer the side-by-side method, which means I'm gonna take job title, I'm gonna move it next to customer because those are related information. Then what I like to do is I like to put my phone and number, my phone and email as a standard on row 3. Just no particular reason, except it's always very consistent. When I go to a record that has a phone or email, I know it's gonna be on row 3. So it's just much more predictable. And now what I've done is, okay, we'll take this unsubscribed field and, I'm gonna use this later on. So I'm gonna move it up there and I have an empty section. What we wanna do is we wanna get as few sections as possible while keeping our data well organized. So I'm also gonna take the addresses and I can move all of them at once. You notice this might not be the exact arrangement I want. I'm just kind of temporarily moving stuff around so I can get a nice clean setup, and then we're going to worry about polishing it. So phonetic name, great, let's put that up in the top section too. And then we have all these fields. So this is a little tip I like to do. So I always like to take my last section, I like to call it system generated info. There's a setting called default state, which basically says when I'm creating a new contact, I don't need any of this information, but when viewing one, I would like to see it. So you do have support for this. And then I can go and rearrange all these fields. So I'm going to take my last contacted field. And this is kind of a standard I like to do, where unsubscribe, last contacted, created on, all these fields are going to be automatically filled in by the system. So that's why I created this section called system generated info. I put my fields right there. And what I like to do is adopt a very standard process of keep them in the same arrangement, just like the phone number and email. Make last contacted on top, make your modified on, modified by, and always put them in this arrangement. So then we scroll up and we just want to kind of finish the polishing of this. So another recommendation is when you have large, tall fields, such as an address, put them on the bottom of a section. It'll make it easier to browse through and find your information. So what I did was I took phonetic name and tags, but even description. Description would be best put underneath the phonetic name and tags. So as you can see, I'm just moving things around, trying to be aware of how it's going to appear and how I'm going to be filling it in what order. And once I'm happy, now I have a much simpler form. I just hit the save button. So now if we go back in and we try to input a new contact, you'll see the drastically different form. So now we'll go type in John Doe again, but it's going to be a little bit easier. You'll notice when I click on this create customer, it has a different set of fields. Like our phone and email are down there now. So this is why we have to repeat the configuration in each app. So the next step is we're going to go to the customers app and we'll change what this form looks like. But first, let's go ahead and create this one example. So we'll just create Maxilon with no particular information. Oh, sorry, we already have Maxilon, which means we can link John to Maxilon. So we can come and put his job title in. So let's make him the CEO this time. Put in some various information. And let's go ahead and save that away. Okay, so now here you can see what happened was my system generated info is expanded right here, but it was hidden on the previous step. So at this point, what we've done is we basically just chopped down what the contact data looks like and made it much more simple. And we want to repeat this in each app, but we're not quite done here yet. So first off, you might want to disable some other features. So just kind of keep in mind, every one of these little features up here could be shut off. I'm not going to dive too far into that because most people are going to use them. But a big thing of what you're going to be doing is, you notice when I click on contacts, I get a list back, which, it's just John right now. But the first thing you can probably take note of is, well, look how much space there is on first name and last name. And maybe for my type of organization, I would like to see the phone number there and the last time that I've contacted them. So this is what we call the list layout. So when I'm browsing through lists of contacts, which column should appear? Now we're going to go back into the settings area, and you're going to notice a pattern where the most important settings are all right next to each other, and you're going to do them in order just like this. So for each app, we configure the master layout, pick the fields we want. Now we come to list layouts, and we say, when I'm browsing through this app, which fields should be visible. So now the trick here is each one of these fields can be removed or added, and we can choose the order of them. You pick the first field that I want to have visible, and I remove everything but that. So let's say I want to start with first name, and then I'm going to have everything else after. So I notice I click this please choose button up here, and then I can simply uncheck every other box. So I'm just going to remove everything that I don't want. So I think assigned to is right there. And now I add them in the order I want. So I'm going to do first name, last name, job title, customer, phone number, who it's assigned to, and then the last date that we've contacted them. So I'm going to go get that stuff set up. And then what I can do is I can click on these columns and I can shrink them down and resize them. So that way I can fit all my information on one screen. So you basically do your work like this. And you notice the next time I click back to view a list of my contacts, now we have a better layout. So that's the second major step of configuring an app. There is more advanced things. You can have many different layouts. The first step is just get a good default layout like we did. So now the last major step of configuring an application is going to be over in the left navigation. So you have all these basic filters that you can apply, but what I can do is, it's by territory. Remember, we just removed the territory field, meaning this has no usage for us. Also, maybe by category is something I use all the time, or I don't want to use by directory. These are called the views. So what you'll do is you'll come into the settings once again, The third option, views, you just click on that. You have a couple different options up here. Notice that a couple of mine are actually already turned off. So what you can do is you can toggle them off when you're choosing not to use them. So we're going to turn off territory and the by directory. And maybe I'm going to be using custom ones quite a bit. So I'm going to move these up to the top. So you just click on stuff and drag it around. And then once again, when I click back to my home page, you can now see my left navigation has been adjusted. The final step of a view is adding your own custom view. So what you can do is ahead of time, I could create a search result and save it away, which I'm going to do this really quickly. You don't really need this for a very basic setup, but it means I can come in and I could say, show me everybody in a certain region, show me everybody working for a company, or let's say, show me all of my CEOs. So CEOs is not a standard filter over here in the left, but once I run my search, you will see a button called Save as View. So if I want to commonly see a list of CEOs, I simply create that. I could share it with others, and you'll get a custom link over here in the left column. Okay, so that's basically the sequence we want to do for each app. Now, if I'm going to hop through, I'm basically going to move through. I'm going to configure these as fast as I possibly can. So we're just going to do that same exact formula each time. Head to master layout, delete the extra stuff. So we're just going to start wiping out stuff that we don't think is going to be relevant to us in this app, and we're starting to rearrange stuff as we go. So remember, I'm going to put phone and email right up top, making sure related fields are next to each other, and I'm deleting the clutter. So I'm doing a very similar set of things that I did in the contacts app. And that's where, for the most part, you do things one time and you don't have to do them again. So in this case, you might have a bunch of fields. I'm going to save a little bit of time for myself. What I've done is I'm going to create a brand new section, and I'm going to call this one my system generated info. So we're going to do the same thing. We're on the create page. It is closed. And then I'm going to take my fields that I wanted. So we've got the last contacted date right there. And then we did our unsubscribe, and then we did created on below that. Actually, let's see. Let's delete a couple of these to get some room. There we go. All right, so we did created on, then created by on the right, and modified by and modified on the left. And yep, sometimes you might get a little bit finicky with the drag and drop there. So just keep playing around until it goes in the right spot. If you ever see a behavior like this, it's really simple. Just save it, refresh the page, and then it'll come back to normal. It happens a lot when you're doing a lot of rapid changes. If you don't completely wait for the page to save, which I tend to skip in mine, you might run into that from here and there. And then what you notice is I can just delete this whole section. So that just saved me a bunch of time. Okay, so then I go back here, just make sure that it is arranged how I want. It's pretty much good to go. I can now save this. So once again, hop into your list layouts and now say, well, what's important for me? So I'm going to uncheck them in order. I'm going to uncheck everything that I don't want except for a customer name, which is how I'm going to start mine. And I'm going to re-add them in the order that I want. So I want the category, the rep, the phone number, and the state that they're located in, along with the last time that we've contacted them. Go through, do your resizing, just like before. Now, because we changed the customers app a moment ago, remember how, we can come in here, we can create a customer. Now you see the simplified form. But a moment ago when we created that contact, I just want to point out that as you change each app, it will take the settings of that app. So if we go right back into that previous flow and now choose to create a customer, you can see it has our new field structure. So once you do the first one, it's pretty quick. We would just hammer through and do the remainder of them. So I can go into the leads application. I'm doing the same exact thing. So yeah, really once you figure out the details you need, this is just autopilot. Remove the clutter, get what we want right up top when it's important. But this is actually a special one on leads, which I want to point out here, which is the company name. It's very common where people want the company name first. So what I end up doing is I'd want the business name on top, followed by the person's name, then followed by the contact information. So yeah, we'll do phone and email here, but you notice there's no company name immediately visible. So company is actually down here under business details and leads. Very important note, drag the company field, not the customer field. Put that one on top. Now the reason is important because this will support the conversion flow properly. So now there we go. I've got a company-centric lead. Scroll down. I've got this extra clutter. So maybe we'll just go wipe that stuff out like we did before. And it's all about consistency. Big part about making sure that your system looks nice when you're done is sweating the details. If you decided to put them in this particular order, it really doesn't matter what order they go in. The only thing that matters is you're consistent with your order. So we just go through, wipe out the extra crap, Move my address on top like I had in the other scenarios. And we're pretty much done here. So you can start to get a feel for how quick this becomes once you go through. And then the list layouts, same sort of thing, where what I actually want here is the company first. I'm going to remove everything else. This is a very common question, actually, when people get started is, well, I center around company, so not a problem. You can do that stuff there. And good to go. So the final step would be in the opportunities application, but at this point you probably got a feel for it. Just takes a couple clicks. We go through, although there's actually much less on the opportunity itself. So I like to delete that. One thing I like to do on the opportunity is I like to stack up all the stage and financial figures over on the right. So what that means is like the close date and the amount of the deal, they're all related to each other. They're used for calculations. So what I like to do is create a setup sort of like this. So you got the type of deal, like high-level classifications on top. You flow down through your customer and contact. Then typically it's more important for who it's assigned to. Then we can have the amount. And maybe you put a commission field right there if you want to do a custom field. And we'll just go remove this extra clutter. And down there, so some extra fields, and we'll make this one our system-generated information. System-generated info. We're almost to the finish line right here. Okay, so then we're going to do the same kind of concept. Last contacted, modified by, created by. You will notice there's no unsubscribe field in opportunities, so I can either move another one over there, or there is something called a spacer attribute. Once again, it's nice because it keeps consistent. So yes, there's no unsubscribe field there, but the other 5 fields are arranged in exactly the same order that you see everywhere else. So we got that, we save it up, and we go finish our last list layouts, and we're done. Although these list layouts, they're pretty much in line with what we'd want to do anyways. So it's really just a matter of getting the appropriate sizing so you get the good information visible on one screen. And yeah, maybe I go toss in like the last contacted date on the end to make it look nice. Okay, so that basically ends up finishing out that cycle. We've ran through each one of the different apps. We've kind of configured their views and all that stuff. Actually, I was skipping the views on the final ones. My apologies on that one. It's the same concept. Click on views, you have all the items in the left navigation, and I shut off the views that I am not going to be utilizing. But as you've kind of gotten a feel for, you'll see I'm very indiscriminate about just turning stuff off. Now the reason that is because everything can be turned back on later. So go through your first cut just like I did. Just delete everything as fast as you can unless it sticks out as being valuable. Then you're gonna hit the point where, well, maybe I wanna track some additional details. So first off, if you deleted something by accident, don't worry. You can click on this hierarchical view right here. It will show you all of your fields. So each one of those ones I've deleted is simply toggled off. If I wanted to re-add the next step field, just toggle it on, and then back on the web tablet, you'll see my next step is available. So you're not deleting anything permanently. If you ever do a big screw up, you have a revision history tab over here on the right, and you can always revert back to the initial configuration that you had gotten set up. Which of course, okay, it's asking me to save. I guess that's fair. Then you can see this is the default configuration. So you can always reset right back to the default configuration in case you get stuck. Okay, so with that basically gets you set up with the start of a CRM. Now it all comes down to doing the evolution of what you want to track. So if you'd like further information on the subject, feel free to head on over to youtube.com/Apptivo. We've got some more videos. There's one in particular that I'd recommend checking out. It's called All About Field Configuration. This one goes in depth about the master layout and the list layouts and the different types of fields that you can create, much more so than today, which is just about how to use the feature. So with that, thanks everybody for attending, and hopefully we'll catch you next time.